to Someday I'll Have a Podcast. My name is Ren, and I am your host on this podcast, which is very much a stream of consciousness, sort of random lifestyle podcast. I don't even know how I would describe it truthfully, because I feel like it's a very wide range of random things that I talk about, just things that I feel like need to be talked about. And my credentials are just the fact that I am simply a person, just like you, just like the rest of us. Just a person with human experiences that I feel like I want to share. And so if you're not down with that, you can click out. But I truly believe that if you clicked on this in the first place, that you were meant to hear this, whether it's just for a little bit of entertainment, to learn something new, to look at things a little differently, whatever it might be. Maybe you're a begrudging high school student who clicked on this because you can't believe how much freaking homework you have. And believe me, I was there once too. I want to talk today about homework in the United States. And truthfully, I was starting to do a little bit of research because many people have told me, we love what you're doing, but like it would help to have like some statistics and things like ready to talk about when you're going to talk into a microphone. And I'm like, okay, I could see why that would be helpful. But when I was looking into statistics and sort of like facts and things about homework in America, some of the things really went against my point. A lot of them did. Because my stance is like, oh my gosh, kids get so much homework and people have such high expectations of like the time these kids like are taking out of their day to do this and et cetera, et cetera. Whereas online, things we're saying like homework these days helps reduce screen time in America because the statistics of like time scrolling through TikTok and all that stuff are like skyrocketing, especially since the pandemic. And that's not something I want to focus in on necessarily is the pandemic times, but just in general. But that as well as like some statistics we're saying, according to helpfulprofessor.com, don't know how reliable that is, but this is where I read this, was that almost 50% of parents and guardians in the U.S. think that the homework that is being assigned to their kids is too easy. And I'm like, whether it's easy or not, it's the fact that we have to complete it. You know what I mean? So I just kind of want to walk through what my stance is, because I remember middle school, high school, college, okay, just the expectation to be doing so much work outside of the classroom. And I understand that like continuing education is necessary and that like the expectation to be working and like reviewing this stuff outside of the classroom is how you know things and how you really learn things. But I also feel like the expectation is it's insane. The expectation is a bit insane. In the United States, it is so normalized for students to be working on homework every waking moment of their lives. Like the whole idea of it, school for 8 hours, sports, activities, homework, study, eat, sleep, shower, socialize, because these are your formative years, and still wake up and be ready to rock and roll by 7:30 in the morning. I think that is extremely unrealistic for multitudes of reasons. Like, you're talking to someone who really did do a lot of those things. I was never allowed to skip school. Let's talk high school. Let's talk high school right now. Going in high school, in my personal experience, okay? Because again, I'm just a person with an opinion based on my experiences. I was never allowed to skip school. I didn't miss school for pretty much anything. I think once or twice throughout my 4 years, my parents let me skip to go, twice probably. Let me skip to go to concerts for my birthday. Just like take the day off. But I was never a student who like played hooky. If I was like slightly sick, my parents would be like, okay, here's some Dayquil, have fun, good luck out there, buddy. So I mean, you're expected to go to school from like 7:30 in the morning to like 2:30. Okay, so that's a long day as it is. Also 7:30, bro, so early in order to like wake up, get ready, eat something, catch the bus, make coffee. I can't even tell you the amount of days I just like was starving for 8 hours because I was not about to wake up early to eat and or make a lunch. So you go to school for 8 hours, you're sitting in class, whatever. Then, it's the expectation that you're involved in something. And I was involved in a lot of things. First, I was on the dance team, which we had to practice for 2 hours Monday through Thursday. So that would bring us to 5 o'clock. And then sometimes when I was in the musicals or the plays, I would have rehearsal after that from like 5 to 7, 5 to 9, somewhere along those lines. In between that half hour after school ended till dance started, I would go to like leadership meetings and other sorts of clubs that I was trying to stay involved in, whether it was French club or Adventure Challenge. There's a lot. And then they want you to come home at 5, 6, 7 o'clock p.m. I mean, sports, I was only dancing. Like these actual sports teams, man, they're out at away games till like 9, 10 o'clock. And then they're like, here's 3 hours of homework because, you have to do these 2 assignments, write this paper, and study for the exam you have next week. And if you don't study early enough, you're going to fail. And then you're going to have to try and do more work to get extra credit to get your grade back up. So that's interesting. Plus, we should probably eat dinner, because nutrition and the basics, the basic human needs. Shower if you want to, have any sort of hygiene. Sleep. That would help to get you. They want you to get 8 hours. When those 8 hours are supposed to happen, I'm really not sure. And because they are such your formative years, the ages like 12 through literally 25, I would say, like you are truly like unfolding and becoming a person, going through puberty, like all this stuff. And you need the basic human needs is socializing. One of them on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging is like one of the most basic things. And so like being able to interact with your peers, and sure, you do that during classes and you do that during your sports and your activities, but like to be able to just like relax and like actually have a social life without having to be this pressure around like performance, kind of crazy. Really crazy. And it all about boils down to the American dream because you need to be successful in your school so that you can go to college and get a degree and do that so you can get a good job someday. I also was in AP classes, having like 3 or 4 AP classes laced in throughout the day, just like the amount of expectation they have for you to like really, like I remember being in AP US history and literally daily we would have to read a chapter, which would be like 30 pages per se, and then answer a bunch of questions on it and be prepared for like a quiz the next day. And I remember just so many times trying to catch up on the next class's homework in the previous class. So like I would get to school by, let's say 7:15, and I would spend those 15 minutes before class started trying to finish my algebra homework so that in first period I could turn in my homework, my worksheets. Sometimes, half the time, just scribbling down random shit, random numbers to try and make it look like I tried. Because in so many of those, assignments, you get effort for trying, or like you get graded based on like how, like whatever, the effort kind of thing. Like if it was done or not. So many times I remember just like scribbling stuff down on paper, like, oh my gosh. And like, especially with the AP classes, they really expect you to be putting out like solid, thought through, professional-esque work. And sometimes that's just not realistic. Actually, often that's not realistic because then you'd also be in like, even a regular old English class, they want you to read 50 to 100 pages a night to be able to talk about it the next day in class. And I get that. I love the intention, but there has to be a better system. There's got to be a better way for the workflow. Like, come on. I don't know if that means making the day longer, the school day longer by a couple hours, or having school go longer throughout the summertime. Like, I don't have the answer, but I just think there needs to be a better way because the expectations are high. And it's like, I feel like the other side of this will argue like, well, without high expectations, how are you ever going to succeed in like the real world with like a workforce and all this other stuff? And sure, I totally get that. But these are also kids. Like, yes, you have to teach people at a young age, like work ethic and determination and perseverance and all this other stuff, and literally good study tactics and all these other things. But these are also kids and young people forming into, like, these are not adults quite yet. And like, I think that there's value in, I think it's necessary to value like the play. Like, you stop having recess in like 5th grade, which is fine, but also like give more time for creative outlets in school. Like, the fact that a lot of people and districts and things are trying to take away the arts. I should look something up about that. Please hold. So I was reading this article by huckleberryfineart.com, huckleberryfineart.com, which of course is a website about fine art. And I don't know, I was just reading through it, so it could be biased based on the the platform that it's on and what's aiming to do. But they're talking about how until recently art and the arts were mandatory in schools for a reason. It wasn't just dilly dallying. Like they're not just making it. They weren't just making it necessary willy nilly. There were studies that showed how the arts can be very necessary in helping children to develop motor skills, language skills, social skills, risk taking, inventiveness. And these are like the basis of, I think this goes far beyond like the factual learning that we so prioritize in school. Like in 1952, blah, blah, blah happened. Like, I think that the necessary skills that you learn from the arts, whether it be an instrument, a language, physical art like painting or sculpting, like you learn problem solving skills. And yeah, that's why, like, even though I just was never good at math and it was just never my thing, I think that that's, though that sort of thing also teaches you those problem solving skills, but it teaches you more of like a basis of if survival in life rather than just like fact learning to pass a test next week and forget everything after the fact. You know what I mean? And I think that the shift should definitely change. I don't exactly know how that relates to having homework every day, but it's worth being talked about, the fact that there needs to be some sort of changes and in a direction that will be helpful in the long term. It just kind of makes me laugh too that we like a 40-hour work week is like what is like the baseline in the US. Like sure, people who are salary are working 70 to 80, people who are hourly could be working less than 40. But 40 is like a full time, and it's just funny to me that like a lot of students experience like double that for their studies. Like high school students spending more than 20 hours per week on homework. 20 hours just on homework and studying. That's not even including the 40 hours basically that you are in school. Like that is insane. Like they just put so much pressure on it, It also said that 20% of students who are spending a lot of time on their homework are experiencing more health problems. And that is the last thing we need in children is more health problems. Also, the fact that so much of homework is like busy work. Like I was talking about earlier with having a worksheet that like what didn't even matter if the answers were right or wrong. It's like, how is that even effective then? Right? Like just having like busy work, like random readings or random multiple choice things that you never revisit in class or whatever. It's like, what was the point? And that's why a lot of times it'd be like, what is the point of doing these things? Am I even learning? Is it worth that 2% of my grade if I just don't turn it in? And it's unfortunate that there would be like backlash or consequences for not doing the homework or the busy work or all that jazz. I feel like resources are not as accessible as we make them seem for a lot of people. Like I remember in high school having to like have a special pass if you wanted to stay in the library after school to like work on work. But it's like, what if you don't have a computer at home and like you're supposed to go to like the administration and like explain to them your situation so they can write you a pass, like without just letting you stay, like having an open library until a certain time. Like there were so many weird little things like, and I don't work in the administration and I don't work in a school. So like, how would I know why that is? But like, I'm sure there was a reason, but also like make things actually accessible. And I remember too, like in college was a whole crazy time. But when I did my study abroad, I was living in France and there was no such thing as busy work. Like whether if we were getting an assignment, it was so that like we were learning. It was like a paper based on the research we were doing, or it was like, this is something we're going to discuss tomorrow in class, so be prepared. It was never just like stupid random worksheets. Like I feel like the focus was much more on the actual education. and a lot more like hands-on learning. And granted, I was blessed to be in the program that I was. It was really cool that I got that opportunity, and just kind of like how that opportunity came along for me. So I am very grateful that it was just a well thought out program, very well put together, and the focus was put on the hands-on learning and really like put you in there. But I also feel like, I don't know if it was because it's a European system and it was a lot different, or just because it was a more developed program, or what the reasoning. But I loved that the focus was on the learning, and it wasn't as like cutthroat to be like doing this busy work, I guess. And it was like combining. A lot of it was combining the creativity portion with the educational portion. Like we would have like creative assignments based on the topic we were learning, or a reading that we did, those kind of things. And I really appreciated that. Maybe I was just like in love and romanticizing everything about living in France, but that was part of my experience. So definitely something worth noting. Anyways, with all that being said, I am so sorry if you're struggling through your homework this season. I really hope it gets better, and I hope that people start to recognize the what is the opposite of necessity? A non-necessity. I hope people start to recognize the non-necessity, the non-essentiality. I'm just making up words now. I hope people start to recognize that homework is not necessarily essential. It's not necessarily necessary. It may not be necessary for success of the student. And if we can shift the way that we learn, that would be just absolutely fabulous. And with all that being said, now is the time for me to shift to my on repeat that Spotify makes for me. This is the part of the podcast where I give you a song suggestion based on the things that I've been playing a lot lately that Spotify makes for me, because I love music, and that's the basis of it all, baby. I think it's so important to share our tunes. So my song is Drum and Bass Father. My song recommendation this time is the Drum and Bass Father. Drum and Bass Father by Devilman and DJ Looney. I found this song through a friend that we met on Maui. It is a drum and bass track, high BPM, silly lyrics. Honestly, like it's funny, it's fun. It's like British rap with a drum and bass beat. It's funny. You should definitely listen to it. As always, it will be linked in the show notes. Definitely something to get hyped to. Anyways, everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you're listening to this, thank you so much. It is a goal of mine in 2024 to just be more consistent about the podcast, grow the audience a little bit. So make sure you share this with a friend. Share the podcast. Maybe not this episode, but share any one of these episodes with a friend. Send it along. Word of mouth is powerful, okay? So send it on over. It's available on pretty much all streaming platforms, and I am grateful to have you here as a listener. And my encouragement for you is to go and make your someday today. Whatever you say you're someday going to do, just do it today. Start it. Start that journey right now, just like I did with this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. See you in the